Okay, talking about the Gamecocks, only 10 points on the board against Georgia, but hey, it was a workmanlike effort. They stayed in the game. They were within striking distance. You pretty much nailed the prediction to a certain extent in terms of the range of the type of game it was going to be, that it was going to be fairly interesting, but never feel as though Georgia was threatened. I followed suit. I pretty much thought the same thing, and certainly 24 points was comfortable if you went that range in regards to the betting point spread. Your thoughts about the performance against the Bulldogs?
I think South Carolina played hard. I think they showed that from a year ago they've improved in terms of handling the moment. They still had opportunities. And Georgia didn't play a perfect game. Let's not pretend that Georgia played this perfect game and South Carolina kept it within 14. Georgia had some mistakes as well. But I do think you saw where the South Carolina program is and how they can play and where they could be going. I mean, quite frankly, neither team played their A game on Saturday. But the difference in that ball game was Georgia had elite level playmakers and South Carolina doesn't just yet. We'll see if Will Muschamp can recruit. You have to recruit. We just mentioned J.C. Horn. You got to get a guy like Channing Tindall. You have to get some offensive playmakers. South Carolina has to continue to grow in those areas. That's where they got beat by Georgia. But I think as a fan, you had to be pleased with what you saw from South Carolina Saturday afternoon in Athens.
So we've got a game with the Florida Gators coming to town with Randy Shannon on the sideline instead of Jim McElwain taking on South Carolina. Of course, the Gamecocks can't win the SEC Eastern Division now, but nobody expected them to. But they're sitting now at 6-3 with 3 games left. And we've mentioned it a number of times, even before they stepped on the field against NC State, 7-5, 8-4. Even if you write off the game against Clemson, and I don't even think that's necessarily the case. The team probably has a 5 to 10% chance of pulling off an upset. But even right off Clemson, and I don't want to say this is a must-win of this being a successful campaign. It's going to be successful regardless. I think 7-5, but it would be really nice to be 8-4, beat Florida, and that's almost an expectation now based on the way the teams are playing.
They've got it's not a must-win because must-wins define whether you continue playing the season or not, but it's a must-win now for South Carolina. Expectations have changed. There will be, at home, a touchdown favorite. South Carolina has to win this football game. I mean, it's as simple as that, quite frankly. You're the better team than Florida. You want to take the program to the next step. You want to get to winning. You want to get to competing with Georgia. You've got to win a game like this. At home, you're the better team. Florida's in turmoil. I'm with you. Must win, calling it a must win. Here's a must win. Game 7 of the World Series a couple weeks ago. That's a must win. Beating Florida, though, is as close to it because, man, from a stature of a program, you got a chance to once again beat Tennessee and Florida in the same year. Look, regardless of where those programs are at, that's a big deal. And the fact that you can get to 8 wins, maybe win 9. I think you could go to either Jacksonville or Tampa to go to the Outback or the Gator Bowl. There's a lot on the line for this game. You're right. I don't know about the term must win. It's as close to it as it. South Carolina cannot lose this game, though.
Yeah, once we get to postseason play in the bowl games, different people put different levels of value on the bowl games, but there's definitely a difference in the vibe and the fan base going to Birmingham to take on South Florida. And I know that the fan base was excited to do that after 3-9, but when you can go to a decent bowl game, a game that's on New Year's Day or close to it, and people are going to be watching because you're facing a brand name Big Ten team, and there's a little something going there. You got Michigan on the other side, or Michigan State, or somebody like that to play. It's just a completely different deal for the fan base and for people to get excited about between championship weekend in the SEC and the bowl game, to get excited for that kind of game. And again, it's meaningless to a certain extent, but it shows that the program is taking the right steps.
Oh, it would just to go from 3 wins to 6 wins to 8 wins, the opportunity to win 9. I mean, like you said, 8-4, you give a really good recruiting staff, Will Muschamp and his staff, the opportunity to go on the road and be able to sell some legitimate substance as to not, hey, we think we can win, but we did win 8. It's one thing to say we think we can win, but be 6-7. It's another to go on the road and recruit when you're 8-4, 8-5, 9-4, whatever it may be. And you're right, the prestige of playing in that bowl game. You're talking about the difference in maybe playing again in Florida as opposed to playing potentially in Shreveport at the Independence Bowl or Memphis at the Liberty Bowl.